I have a question for you. The question is this: have you ever had a moment where it felt like, yes, you did, Sam, you had a moment. I've had one too, Sam, I'm with you, okay? But have you ever had a moment where it felt like everybody else knew a secret that you didn't? Some people, that's the story of their life. For some of us, we might vaguely have one of those. For other of us, we can pinpoint that exact thing. Listen, I felt this way a couple of times. Most recently, a couple of years ago, when I was trying to score a PS5. Right? And this was like midst the hype and the craze that came out. It's the coolest thing. They had the upgraded controller that literally has these like adaptive triggers. So like if you're playing a card game, it's like kind of tough on the brake and then nice and smooth on the gas. Really cool things. I was all about it. It was an incredible thing. But listen, there was a problem that was happening, right? It was like Black Friday was happening, but it wasn't Black Friday. There was only one glorious product that everybody was trying to get their hands on, and that was the PS5. And so consequently, if you were me, and you too wanted to get your hands on this prized PS5, the reality was that no matter how hard I tried, or waited, or asked at the stores, or sought online through all of these digital means, I could not get my hands on the PS5. It was always too late. They were always just too sold out. I mean, I waited in the actual, like Sony's website. They had a queue, and you would enter into it. And I got in this queue, and it said like 5 hours. And I waited, literally waited. It was like open here. I was like doing other things. 2 hours, only to have it say, oh, I'm so sorry, we're sold out. Like, This is what I was dealing with. It was like the worst thing ever. I'm watching everybody else get a PS5, but me. But what made it even more frustrating is that it wasn't actually an availability problem. You could go and buy a PS5 if you had enough money. Because what was actually happening at this time is you had all these scalpers buying up all the inventory and then selling it for like double or triple the profit. I don't know if you've ever tried to buy something that this was happening. It's infuriating. Like, I actually had to do a soul check at one point about the state of my soul because I was getting so frustrated with these guys who were buying and selling at double and triple the price. And so, yes, technically there was availability, but you just had to dish out a premium that I was way too stubborn to do, and I wanted to be able to get it myself. And I remember thinking this: there must be some secret information that I'm missing. There must be. I needed to figure out this inside scoop. And maybe you felt like this before. Maybe you felt like maybe people are smarter than I am. They must know some way of learning or studying that I don't. Maybe it's socially, like you always seem to say or to do the wrong thing, and you struggle maybe with fitting in or feeling accepted for who you are. Maybe it's with your faith journey. Like, you feel like everybody else seems to understand it, and maybe you have a struggle or two or a question, or people seem to embody it just a little bit better than you do, or seem a little more resilient to sin in their own life. And if you are wondering that, or if you have ever wondered that in your life, I have good news for you. I'm going to give you the secret. I'm going to let you in on the thing that I felt like I was always missing. Not just to faith. I'm going to give you the secret to life. Does that sound good? Does that sound like something? You're like, Brad, you're being Brad, right? Mackenzie's like, yeah, right, Brad. No, seriously, I'm going to do it. Just hold with me, okay? Because here's what I learned in my journey to have a PS5. I know, plot twist, right? Came back to that PS5. It's really important to me. Here's what I learned. In that situation, in order to beat the scalpers, you know what I had to do? I had to become one. That's it, Sam. Absolutely. I couldn't keep doing what I had been doing. I needed to fully own this problem that I was facing. Self-imposed, I agree. But fully own it. And in that case, I needed to learn, hey, you know what? Brad needs to adapt here. He needs to find what he's missing. He needs to commit to the grind of finding and becoming the kind of person that is capable of getting the PS5 before the masses. That to beat the scalpers, I had to become one. So that's what I did. Now, to be clear, I did not buy and sell PS5s for profit. Did not do that. I promise you. But I did become a student to find the information that I was missing. I took ownership of my shortcomings. I took ownership of the fact that there had to be knowledge out there to be found, right? Or otherwise, people wouldn't be getting the PS5s before myself. I had to be committed to the work that it would take to fill in and make up for the lack that I had. Do you hear me? And that subtle shift from being passive of just, well, I didn't get one this time. Jiminy Crickets, I didn't get one this time, right? That subtle shift from passivity to ownership would change my secretly nerdy life. It would. Secret? Somebody said secret? Yes, no, listen, I have a strong nerd bone, 100%, I'll admit that. And with enough time, I have to tell you, friends, I was able to find and infiltrate this Discord community where there was literally thousands of workers and employees from all different, like Walmart, Target, Best Buy, all giving an early scoop. Hey, we've got 10 stock in at this store, and it's going to be available at this time. I kid you not. It was a real thing. And I got in. It was like a secret society. Absolutely it was. And so I got in, and I found out when the stock would be. So you go in, and you get your address all, and you'd be all logged in. You set the store to the one that you knew it was going to be available at. You would have it in your cart, so that all you would have to do when it would go in stock is you just go, add to cart, check out, and then your PayPal Express, and then boom, you were in. I was committed, guys. I was really committed. And the success that I experienced, because I have to let you know, I did indeed get a PS5. Absolutely, I did. Thank you. I appreciate that validation for that effort. I haven't gotten any validation until this moment, so thank you. But it all can be boiled down to one word. My success. Listen, hear me. My success can be boiled down to one word. And we're going to explore that word today, and that word is ownership. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Ownership. Now, learning to take ownership of a situation is kind of different than the way we're going to talk about today. What I want to talk to you guys about today is how do we learn to take ownership of our lives, of your faith, of your health, of your problems. And it's not as easy as you might think, and the secret is both intuitive and counterintuitive, meaning some of you might be tempted to write off what I'm saying right now, but if you listen close, if you hear what I'm about to tell you tonight, and make steps on it, this has the potential to change your reality as you know it. It might just be the key to unlocking the God-given potential that He created you with and for. That the key to unlocking this word ownership, we need to actually explore one other word, and it's this word, vision. Now, what does vision look like? What does vision for your life specifically look at? Maybe right now that's saving up to put money down for a car, or money in your pocket to buy that thing or item, or PS5 even, that you've been dreaming of. Maybe it's preparing for college. This is a vision of a lot of you seniors out right there. You're looking forward to, hey, I need to prepare for college. That's kind of all that's on your mind right now. That's the vision. Maybe it's getting through summer school, how to continue to get good grades. Maybe it's just trying to figure out like how to stretch out summer. Amen? Like we're like let's figure out how to stretch out summer or attract. Maybe some of you guys, the vision is maybe you're just trying to figure out how to attract that cute boy or girl that you're really interested in, right? Or maybe even it's this. Maybe for some of you sitting here, it's like, man, I just took a step of baptism. I feel maybe stagnant in my faith. I want to start following God and learning what it means to become like Jesus more. Maybe that's what vision for your life looks like. And to make things more complicated, not only do you have a vision for your life, others do too, right? Maybe you've experienced this. Maybe you felt some pressure from your parents of their vision for your life, or maybe you felt some of the pressures culturally, right? And not saying that all these visions are bad, right? Like often your parents have the best in mind for you. They want the best for you. It's good and worthy of your time and attention. But maybe for you, it just kind of feels unnatural. Maybe you felt some of these cultural pressures as well, right? And so if you're writing notes, I'm going to give you a couple of big words that you can scratch into later if you'd like. But cultural visions for your life include things like this, like find what brings you the most pleasure. That's called hedonism. It's often disguised in this very American dream that we call the pursuit of happiness, right? But if you boil down what that actually means, a lot of times culturally, what culture would tell you is to find the thing that brings you pleasure, right? Or maybe another cultural vision that you can see in culture is find what brings you the most money, this capitalistic kind of understanding, right? Whatever, the job you should do, capitalism would say whatever job brings you the most money, even if it makes you really, really unfulfilled, right? Or another cultural vision that we see is find what brings you the most power. This is called autocracy. It's this pursuit of power, and a lot of times even at the expense of other people. Or finally, one of the final cultural visions that we'll explore today is this idea of like find what brings you most convenient, or what is most convenient to you, or what's the easiest for you, right? We see this a lot. The word for this is called laziness. It's called laziness. This is what it is. It is the value of being lazy. All of these visions, that was partially a joke. Okay? Ha-ha. Like we can laugh together. All of these visions, though, are very real and vying for your time. And if you think the vision of laziness is a real thing, ask Wall-E. Right? It's on full display of what that society could be like one day. But all of these visions for your life, they're vying for your time and attention, not only to inform you, but to, hear me, to form you. Ultimately, what influences our decisions in life, that the process of our formational journey in life, what influences those choices and decisions is what vision we ascribe ourselves to. Actually, life in its most simplistic form can be boiled down to the stewardship of our free will, of our choices. And so what will influence our choices the most is what sits in that primary place of vision for our life. Actually, Jesus is very clear about this and addresses this in Matthew 7. He says, everyone who hears my teachings and applies it to his life can be compared to a wise man who built his house on an unshakable foundation. When the rains fell and the floods came and the fierce winds beating upon his house, it stood firm because of its strong foundation. But everyone who hears my teaching and does not apply it to his life can be compared to a foolish man who built his house on sand. When it rained and rained, and the flood came, and the wind and the waves were beating upon the house, it collapsed and was swept away. And so what this means is whether you like it or not, you are already in the formation process. You are already in the process of being formed. You are building your house on something. How do we build a house in this life that Jesus is talking about? We build it by making choices. Is there anybody here that doesn't make a single choice in a day? None of us. We all build our lives day by day, choice by choice. Some of them are smaller parts Some of them are larger parts. But the reality for us tonight is that all of us are being formed. We're making decisions. We are building a foundation. The question for you and I is, what is it that we're building on? Because if we do not take ownership, what we're going to look at tonight, over the vision of our life, our lives will be shaped and dictated by the cultural visions that are shifty and as shaky as trying to build your house on the sand. This is what Jesus teaches us. And this is truth for our life. We can bank on it. And so what does ownership to a Jesus-centric vision look like in our life? And why is that a vision that we should ascribe to is what we're going to explore. And the first part of that answer is to look at the nature of Jesus, who is God, right? Versus the nature of culture, right? One of these things is immutable. Everybody know what immutable means? Immutable means it can't change. It is a firm foundation. You can bank on it. It will always be true. It's a firm foundation. You can jump on it. You can build on it. It's not going to budge. This is Jesus. But how many of you have ever walked in sand, right? Is there anybody here that hasn't walked in sand? Okay, all of us have walked in sand at some point, right? Here's the thing. Sand, even if you stop moving, the wind and the waves and things, it continues to move the sand in and around you. It never stops, even if you do. And any movement you make in the sand, if you've really ever been in deep sand, like a sand dune or anything like that, you know this to be true. Any slight movement you make seems to really change your footing, really set you up to feel unsure. You can't bank on it, and that's because it's always changing and it always will. And so this is actually, for you, it's a really easy discernment tool for your life. If you're banking on anything other than a Jesus-centric vision for your life, the likelihood of that being unstable, no matter how good it is actually guaranteed. And I want to challenge you, because here's the thing. All the cute boys you might be banking on, all the sports that you might be thinking are going to be, you hoping will be becoming your career, all the perfect grades that you think that you need to require to maintain to progress in life, all of these things, I'm not saying they're bad pursuits, except maybe the cute boys. Bad pursuit. Don't go near them. But they cannot be the primary pursuit of your life. Do you hear me? They can't be the primary place of your life. They cannot sustain you in the way that Jesus was meant to sustain you. They cannot be a sure foundation for you the way that Jesus was meant to be a sure foundation for you. Even Tom Brady now understands that eventually your career, no matter how far you take it, will come to an end. And so Jesus is and must be the foundational vision for your life. That's what you were created for. Any other thing, it's a matter of time. And so the second part of why this is true from our understanding of our creative wiring is from this idea of understanding our creative wiring better. We're a creation that has a designer, right? More than that, we're a creation that is supposed to reflect, model, broadcast, put whatever thing you want in there, the image of the Creator who created us. Where are all the book club people at? Is there anybody who's been part of the book club that's here today? Yeah, there's a couple of you guys. Awesome. You guys are learning this right now. You guys understand this. When we're studying Garden City, and this comes from this understanding of Genesis 2 that we're going to look at tonight, about this idea of vision for our life. And so I'm going to read this for you. Actually, it's, let me rephrase that. Genesis 1, verses 26 to 28. It said, "Then God said, let us make man and woman in our image, to be like us. Let them reign over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, of the livestock, over the creatures of the deep along the ground, and over the wild animals. So God created man and woman and shaped them with his image inside of them. In his own beautiful image, he created his masterpiece. Yes, male and female, he created them. And God blessed them in his love, saying, reproduce and be fruitful, populate the earth, and subdue it. Reign over the fish in the sea and the birds of the air, and over every creature that lives on the earth." And what this is known as in Scripture, it's called the cultural mandate. Everybody say that, cultural mandate. Cultural mandate, right? And it's where we learn that we are part of this infinitely creative world which God created for us to learn how to embody being like Him. To become and to lean into being the creators and cultivators like He is. And what this means for you and I is this, is that you and I were created to have meaningful work in our lives. You were created with a vision and a purpose that would beckon your life, that you would desire to give your strength to it, your time, your attention to it, one that will compel your life of loving sacrifice and humble stewardship of the time and of the choices that we were gifted from the Creator Himself for the good of us and for the good of others. This is what that means. I was created by God for God. I was created for His kingdom and for His purposes. That's what I was made to own, okay? That's the vision that God has set before us that we are to, in our free will, take ownership of. And if we do that, that is where our lives will truly flourish from. That's the secret. That's where you and I can learn what it means to live into the best life possible. When I own Jesus as the primary vision for my life, when I own my created image to be a creator and a cultivator like He is. And the reality for us today is that we might be able to conceptually grasp that, but often in reality, this is a very difficult thing, right? How many of us struggle with ownership? I'm going to raise my hand, right? Like, this is a hard thing for us to deal with. Ownership is difficult, so I don't want to leave you hanging. So here are a couple things I think can be helpful as we seek to increase in ownership in a life modeled after the vision of Christ. You ready? Number one. This is a really important one. How many of you know what it is to have a goal for your life? Or just a goal that you've set out to attain? How many know what it is to feel the loss of not being able to hit a goal? Right? It's hard. So something that's helpful for us as we pursue more ownership is that we don't evaluate the progress of ownership, of our growth in ownership, by how well we meet our ideals. This is very important, okay? There will be numerous times where you will fail or you will fall short. And if you are measuring your growth based off of how well you hit your ideal, the reality is 100 times out of 100, you will find a reason to disqualify yourself. We will always fall short. We will always have deficiencies in information that we need to succeed. But actually, I want to give you a better metric, right? A better metric, a true metric of ownership is what do you do when you fail? What do you do when you make a mistake? How do you respond when things don't go your way? That will actually tell you how you're growing in ownership. Will you choose to push forward instead of giving up? How will you learn to do that is by not adding heaps and heaps of pressure to your life, but it's actually from this understanding that your life and growth and ownership comes first from an understanding that you have to be gracious and compassionate towards your own journey towards it. That if my life is only about the ideals, there'll always be an ideal to chase. Anybody relate to that? There's always a reason to put pressure on yourself. There's always a reason to say, I'm not doing good enough. If that's the metric you are going to grow in your faith on, you will always find a reason to feel like you're lacking. Rather, a better metric is when I make a mistake, hey, wait, maybe this is the perfect opportunity to look back and to learn what I didn't have. to actually understand, hey, I can still choose to pursue this thing and to learn and to grow, even when I fall, even when I'm missing something, right? It's grace that enables us in this journey that we're on. It's grace that helps us in our motivation to keep going. That the Lord has so much, is abounding in grace for us. And actually, he looks at these moments that we might deem as failures and mistakes as the exact things that he's going to use to teach you and I how it is to love more fully and look more fully like him. So don't evaluate your process or progress of ownership by how well you meet the ideal. Evaluate it by how well you are able to take steps even despite shortcomings and failures. And two, that leads me to just some practicality perspective things. Having the right perspective towards ownership is a tool that we can use to make sure that you don't dilute your own or undermine your own ownership that you're trying to grow in, right? So part of that is this perspective, or these perspectives. So perfection is not required, but grace is humility is, right? That's what I just explained to you. That having all the right information or knowledge, not a requirement. But having a commitment despite my lack and through my lack is. That certain abilities, skills, and talents, they're actually not a requirement. What is, like God can make up my deficiencies where I fall short, but giving what I have to God is. Make sense? We tracking here? When I don't have the whole picture, having the whole picture is not a requirement. What is choosing to be able to be powerful enough to take a step and to trust God even when I can't see everything by taking another step, right? And even if I'm not sure, God, I'm not sure if this is my step, right? Trusting that even in my good attempt at making a step, he's gracious to lead me if I do make a misstep. That's not even going to thwart him at all. That's not be an obstacle to him, so don't make it an obstacle for you. This idea also that we need to get these other areas of our lives cleaned up before we can take a step here, right? That's also true. There's thousands of reasons to look at where maybe we need to clean ourselves up a little bit better. But hear me, friends. Taking a step where you can will build a confidence in you towards growth. So why would you deny yourself the confidence, which is what you're trying to build, to be able to make really big and harder steps and disqualify yourself before from the things that are actually going to give you the confidence to make the big things a reality? Do you understand what I'm saying? And lastly, that failure does not define me. I can lean in and I can grow despite my shortcomings. I can continue to pursue truth even when I fail or I've turned away. This perspective, I hope, will help you as you continue to grow in pursuing becoming a person who owns their faith, who owns a vision after Jesus and flourishes, right? Actually, scientifically, as I'm getting ready to wrap up here, scientifically, do you know how your brains are wired for motivation? Fun fact, it's not about hitting your mountaintop experiences or ideals in your life. That doesn't actually produce motivation in your life. A lot of us live like, if I could just get to there, whew, man, then I could feel good about myself. Your brain doesn't work that way. Do you know how your brain actually is wired to work? As you take little steps of progress, your brain finds purpose in that. Because that's how the Lord wired you to. That you have more of a formational journey and success at actually the progress of your little steps than you do about these mountaintop experiences. But so often we just look at the mountaintop that was, or that I feel like can't be a reality anymore, and I discredit myself from going any further. And that's not the truth. Little steps scientifically are what produce motivation for progress, continued motivation for progress. Right? And if you can take the pressure off enough to realize that, to lean in to understanding God's vision for your life, this path towards ownership will make you truly into world changers. There won't be obstacles towards you, because when you encounter one, you'll trust the Lord in it. You'll be able to ask God for what you need to push past it. You'll be able to see and trust the Lord in his redirection when we need to be redirected. And that even those bottom experiences in our life, those places where we feel like we messed up, this is a big mistake, even those can become a part of the journey that we can become thankful for and learn to lean in and be kind and compassionate towards ourselves in this journey. John Mark Comer says this is kind of summarizing a lot of this perspective. Grace is the life energy of transformation. Grace. Grace over your shortcomings. Grace over what you lack. These aren't obstacles to the Lord. These aren't actual obstacles for you as you journey in your pursuits and what does it mean to live into God's creative purpose for your life. And so often it's this component, that's why I'm bringing it to you, grace, that is the missing component from seeing us become more powerful people, people who take ownership of our realities that the Lord has placed us into to steward. Now to bring this full circle, we're going to come back to the story about me becoming a scalper, about me getting this glorious PS5. And this is where we're going to end. Once I had the knowledge that I was missing, I have to tell you, friends, I didn't immediately get a PS5. It wasn't the next one, got it. It still was a process. It still took time to learn and to figure out and to get the practice in to be able to do what I needed to do. I didn't get it right away, but it was only a matter of time. Does that make sense? I knew that if I was persistent enough, I now have what I needed to get my hands on a PS5 for myself, which was not the community, the Discord that I infiltrated. It was actually this sense of ownership that I had towards this endeavor. Because I think it took like 2 weeks after that. Not only did I get one, but hear me. I helped my friend get one. I helped my other friend get one for himself. I helped them get their hands on their very own as well. Because when you learn to become a powerful person, a person who takes ownership, here's what I really want you to understand. As silly as this illustration is, right? When you learn to become a powerful person and to take ownership of your own life and your God-given identity and calling, that value does not just translate to you. You are not the only person that gets, it like leaches out of you and it blesses other people. Others people's lives will flourish because of your commitment and growth in ownership and becoming a powerful person. Other people's lives flourish as well. You have the opportunity to help people who need what you have now learned. The secret. This is the power that the world is dying to understand, that actually it's the life of Christ. It's committing to the vision of that life and to become an owner of it, where my life flourishes and my community flourishes and others flourish because of it. And so the question I have for you as we go into our small groups is, what are you going to do with it? You now have the secret. Will you take the time to become a truly powerful person who owns the vision of a Christ-centered life, who owns the God-given potential and purpose that he created you with and to steward your life towards? Because friends, not only will you be blessed, but your friends will. others will because of it too.